Alrighty, we are back. Vic and I have been sleeping for a month, laying dormant after the WTC. And I think I'm going to be correct this time. It's episode 61, I think, of the
Nice.
40K Fireside podcast. The 40K Fireside video cast, as we're going to be doing today. How you doing, Vic? You good?
Oh, I'm good, man. It's good to be back. I mean, we've had a little bit of a gap because we've been waiting for a big tournament to come back around. And what bigger tournament is
Yeah,
there than the London GT?
yeah. Or we were kind of waiting for the balanced data slate or something to happen, right?
Hmm.
So we were kind of lucky, and I think it's a good thing that the balanced data set didn't come out before LGT because there's still a bit of depth in this meta,
Hmm.
and especially if you were playing the LGT, WTC, sorry, getting new models and practicing and stuff like that would have come a little bit too soon. So for me personally, I'm very happy that there wasn't a big game update because otherwise I would have had to be playing a lot more. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel you on that. I'm pretty much the same. And it's kind of nice, to have a mature meta to walk into. A lot of
hmm,
people understand the different archetypes available. And when
yep,
the meta is as balanced as it is now, so many archetypes are viable.
yep,
And I think that's as interesting as, say, a big change and then everyone's trying to innovate something new. I
yep.
think I'm looking forward to this LGT. I think it's going to throw up a lot of surprises and be very interesting to follow.
Nice. So the LGT this year is, I think, 835 players.
Yes.
I don't know how many tickets they sold as a whole, but 835 is probably the largest I think we've had here, I suspect, right? Game is
May,
growing.
I'm not. Yeah, some or similar to what it was last year.
Yeah. I think we're about 80 or 90 players off LVO last year.
Hmm.
So it's a good sign for Warhammer in the UK, and it feels like Warhammer in the UK is expanding now. We've got a couple of other groups and organizations that are running tournaments outside of the UKTC that have started in the last year as well, right? So
Yeah,
really cool. Good
absolutely.
for the scene. Now, today, we're going to be going through a little bit of a complicated topic. Vic and I will obviously be chatting about our list at some point, overall, what we think about the meta, but we're going to try and tackle ranking the factions in a way that's kind of meaningful to the average player and the average faction performance at the tournament. So we've got some statistics across the side here. Shout out to whoever did this. This is the representation of every faction. What would have been great is to look at the last LGT actually and see what the difference there was. But as you can see, I think most of us agree this is pretty well balanced.
Hmm.
Uh, but what we're going to try and do is look at this faction representation here and decide whether or not a faction would do better on average than what the current meta representation percent of it would be, if that kind of makes sense. So,
Hmm.
for example, if we took Tyranids, we thought Tyranids were going to do very well, and they're only 5.5% in the middle, they're top three in the meta, then we would say that they were going to overperform because we think that 5.5, they should be represented much higher than that,
Yeah, I think it's
for
hard to
example.
do this one completely objectively. So there is going to be a little bit of a subjective element from me and
Yep.
Dave, but I think different to other tier lists that we can see out there, we're going to try and make this about the entire range of players going to tournaments, not just the very very top tier,
Mhm.
and tie in some discussion on some interesting lists on these factions that are turning up, as
Yep.
well as their overall power in the meta. So hopefully it's useful.
Yeah. And see kind of whether or not the broad themes, and I guess we're also going to be commenting, sorry, on what we thought the broad themes of the meta were going to be going into the tournament, kind of at the list submission point. I know definitely that myself put a lot of thought into what I thought was going to be in the meta and what kind of the last 200-300 points, how I could optimize kind of for that. And I'm sure Vic did as well. So there we go. So maybe at a holistic view, at the highest level, Vic, what do we think? UK has historically had, and if you're a podcast listener, Necrons are the most represented army at 6.66%, 54 players out of 830. I'm going to call it 830. It might not be exactly that, but we're going to say 830.
Mhm.
54 players of that. Any surprise to you there, Vic?
Yeah, if we're going to hit Necron straight up, I mean, the UK meta is very interesting. There's been kind of this period of time where the WTC players have been missing.
Mm,
And we have WTC players not just from Team England, but from other countries like yourself. New Zealand, we have Brian from USA. We have people like Liam who usually travel over from Team Belgium. And with all of these people missing, the meta has kind of developed in the background alongside what's been going on in WTC. And
mhm,
probably one of the forerunners in the meta in the UK, and it's very particular to the UK, is the power of a certain kind of hypercrypt Necron build.
mhm.
Hypercrypt Necrons have been doing well across the board, but they've been doing particularly well with this list in the UK of taking 2 or 3 big things in Hypercrypt and just kind of creating this threat saturation, stat check kind of list. It's
Very
been
high durability as well on those
winning
things.
tournaments all over the place. So
Mm.
I'm not surprised to see that list become so popular and actually become the most represented list in the tournament. It's crazy, but it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, neither for me actually. Necrons UK has actually kind of been a Necron haven to some degree, and actually, I think it's a bit of a custody haven when they are good. All the custody buffs just come out of the woodwork, that's for sure. But yeah, I think Necrons have just been so good for a long time. A lot of people have the comfortable pick on them, and the models are pretty sweet as well. Like, if you get to play with a Monolith or Silent King or something like that, it's pretty cool as well. So I think they get it. They hit the balance right in terms of power and cool factor and kind of collectability in there, I think, as well.
Yep.
Aside when it was 18 rates,
Uh,
the Hypercrypt is really in the good balance there, I think.
I think the Hypercrypt list is also fun. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big factor here. Not only is it relatively, so it's a list that should be difficult to play, that's not difficult to play.
Mhm.
At the same time, it's really fun, and every move you do has an impact on the game.
Mm.
So I think it's very satisfying for people,
Yeah.
not to mention actually being powerful as well.
Shoot those death rays, baby.
That's it.
Roll
Casino
those sixes.
cannons.
There we go. Yeah, you got the Doomsday Arc as well, all that good fun.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Necrons at the highest represented.
Mm.
How do you think they're going to go? Do you think, overperform? Do you think the average player is going to go 4-1 or 3-2? What do you think, man? What's your
So,
gut feeling telling you?
in my opinion, I think these kinds of lists are perfect for overperforming usual performances.
Mhm.
If your normal win rate going to a tournament is getting 50%, running a list like this will help you to push beyond that and do better, overperform.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be one of the most, even though it's the most represented, I think it's going to be one of the most
Oof.
overperforming lists at the tournament because it's very hard to beat unless you really have tailored your list to it or you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. It actually has that capability that you're alluding to of that high durability, particularly on the Monolith, Silent King, and whatnot, Tesseract Vault maybe, and the 3-inch drop, which can take advantage of player mistakes,
Mhm.
whilst also surviving with a durable asset that still has output on the UKTC boards in a shootout, which is absolutely critical. That's the way that I see the game at the moment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Bam,
mean,
overperform.
it's in overperform. It might be worth taking a look at an example list of
Yes,
this
of
in
course.
case
Yes,
people don't know, because I think a lot of people in USA would never have heard of this list that's been named the hyper thick list. Hyper thick.
it's good. There's a couple of different ways you can play this, and
Oh,
look,
see, look at the name, literally the title.
I think um, there's a couple of different ways you can play this, and I'm not going to say I knew this, but we did play this list basically at WTC for New Zealand,
Mhm.
so I was very high up on this kind of list archetype. Danny has taken it to another level in terms of thickness, but so I wouldn't play this thick, but I can respect it. I can respect it. So it's the typical shell, and what I would call the typical shell is going to be Silent King Monolith, um, and then maybe a Tesseract Vault or a second Monolith or a Mortal package around that. But it kind of the core shell is Silent King Monolith plus Chaff plus another big asset, basically, usually.
Yeah.
And so Danny's gone with Silent King. Deathmarks is so good for 60 points right now. They have the deep strike ability, which means in Hypercrypt, they're really useful because you're kind of limited in Hypercrypt by the strategic reserve 6 inches. And for 60 points, the unit, I think they're toughness 5 as well. They might be toughness 4.
Yeah, they think they're top as 5.
Yeah,
They're
because
good.
they're like an immortal body, right?
Mm.
The shooting's decent, but being able to deep strike and do secondaries is great. 3 destroyers, whatever. So he's gone with the double Doomsday Arc, double Monolith. So this is it's pretty all in. I'm not sure about the
This is what
Doomsday
I'm
Arc,
saying,
but
though. This is the list, isn't it? It's 3 big things and 2 doomsday arcs, and it's just whether you
really,
take a vault or the monolith. I think that's the one that's
okay.
become popular in the background, Dave.
Oh, okay,
While
right.
we've been busy doing something else, this
Ah,
has become the most popular archetype out of
wow.
nowhere,
Okay.
and it's very good.
Yeah, I mean, so the Doomsday Arc obviously has a lot of variance to it. It's got a D6 shot,
Mhm,
but at the same time, it is pretty durable with the 4-up save, and it's rocking, I think, 14 wounds off the top of my head. So the
mhm.
4-up invuln 14 wound, it is annoying to get rid of. So it's very likely that there's a good chance that if you put an undercommits, you're going to get 2 activations out of it. or you're going to reactivate it back on another part of the board where it's safer, and then maybe get 3. So that's really where these lists function, is that if you can knock a big asset down every turn and then maybe tag another one if it's got 4 big assets, that's a good way to combat these armies. But at the same time, if you undercommit and don't knock them down, then you start to get snowballed on, which is woof, that's rough. But these armies, I will say, and the Doomsday Arc in particular, it can be countered by Team Catachan Jungle Fighters, because as soon as you tag a Doomsday Arc in Hypercrypt,
that's it.
It's bang on useless, I'll tell you that. So there's vulnerabilities to this army for sure. I mean, that's where the Monolith is really good, because it does have the useful combat as well. But that's where the Immortals are also good, or the Enigmatic Destructors with the rerolls. I think that's the right one. To kill the chaff, because you are liable to getting tagged. And in an army with so many monopolized threats, like basically 5 big threats, I would worry about getting tagged. And I think that's a good way to play against an army like this personally.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I mean, I played against this particular kind of list just with a Tesseract Vault instead. And there are definitely things you can do, to play around this. In UK, I mean, just in rules in general, just non-WTC, the models can overhang the side of the board. But even then, these monoliths and things, they are a little chunky. So you can still, even a 3-inch deep strike, you can zone out like 6 to 8 inches to try and block it out. So it's not impossible to give them very limited places to deep strike into. And once you take a bit of momentum away from these kinds of lists, they can just not really keep up with you. So
the Monolith is a 9-inch block. It's a 6-inch wide model, so 9 inches away, you're fine. But yeah, like you said, if you focus on playing the mission a lot of the times against these lists, then that's usually just the way to beat them. Play the mission, get tabled, tag them up, make sure they can't do anything, and you might just find that you win by 8 or 9 points, right?
Exactly. And kill that spider thing. They've got the spider, right?
Oh, the spider, yeah.
6-up feel no pain spider.
I wouldn't play the spider personally. The reason why I wouldn't play the spider, and we didn't play the spider for WTC, man, I know so much about this because I spent ages on this for WTC, is that what happens is that the list is so mobile and your big threats are so mobile, the spider, you're never going to pick it up, and it becomes so slow that it anchors where your big pieces can go if you try and stay within the feel no pain range. And that was even when T-Sons were really popular. We said, don't even play it still. So yeah, interesting. I'm pretty sure there's lots of different variations of builds like this, but I would expect to be playing against something like this as well. I know a guy. I'm going to shout out to Eddie Stanton, who is actually playing a different archetype for Necrons. He's playing Awakened Dynasty, and there are still a few wraiths hanging around. So shout out to Eddie there.
Is Josh at this event? Is at LGT?
Is Josh at this event?
Is Josh here? What's he running?
Wow, shots fired. Josh is playing Chaos Space Marines.
Josh is on CSM. All right, cool.
He's playing 18 units of Legionaries. No, he's playing Renegade Raiders, of course. Yeah,
beautiful.
I think he's been playing that for a while.
Yeah, he's enjoying that one.
Nice. Necrons overperform. They're a heavy hitter in the UK meta right now.
Yeah,
there we go.
Awesome. I think they're going to do very, very well. I'd be interested to see. This is like a perfect list for the US meta. So any of you US guys who want to get in there and get a cheeky win with a European list, this is the one to copy.
I love it. Tesseract Vault is pretty sweet as well, man. You go to a tournament, you're playing a Tesseract Vault in the Monolith. Like, come on,
really, I don't know. I don't know if it's cool, man. It's weird.
Alrighty. This one I think has been creeping up a lot, and since its Codex debut, has been doing really well. Obviously, had a good run at WTC, a bit of a patchy run at WTC, but it had some very, very good runs. So, Chaos Space Marines being repped at the second most played faction, at 5.8%, 47 players. It feels more popular than it should, if I'm being honest.
It's very popular. I'm actually quite surprised that it's so popular, because I thought the general consensus was that CSM have been nerfed quite hard. The points are expensive. They're not that good. Something like that. That's the vibe I got. This doesn't match the vibe. This is their popular. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
I can kind of see the appeal on UKTC because you get a mix of combat and shooting. Like, obviously, the Predator Destructor is just like straight, super solid tank. A couple of las cannons, you get sustained. whatever like that. You don't care if it fails the pact or something like that, right? Like it's a really easy shooting base to build a list from. Then we've got advance and charge components after that. And I think, a lot of people, from the last LGT probably had Chaos Space Marine armies as well waiting around, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Chaos Space Marines as a faction are incredibly popular.
Yep.
They are cool because they have very kind of cool lists, cool models,
Hmm.
and I think the current archetypes that are available are quite fun to play.
Yep.
And there are two main kind of types that we can kind of see. I think the full vehicle spam, that's kind of gone out the window. That's not really there.
Hmm.
But the Renegade Raiders archetypes are both quite popular. Both
Hmm.
the one where they have like MSU, loads of MSU units, which we can see Liam and Josh Roberts playing. And
Hmm.
then the other one, which is the triple accursed bricks, which
Hmm.
we can see, for
Yep.
example, Dino's bringing that over
Yep.
from Netherlands. So I think both are going to be very, very popular, and they're both quite cool as well.
I actually, uh, I actually think that the Renegade Raiders is the weaker detachment on
Oh
UKTC.
yeah, it's the other one. It's the
Because
actual.
I like the one that Liam is playing as well. It's the Veterans of the
Yeah,
Long
yeah.
War, which gives you the
Yes,
Oath of Moments, which
yes.
actually turns some of your assets into much better components, right? So like the Obliterators, for example, are significantly better, obviously, with vets
Both.
because
Yeah.
you get Oath Moment, you hit on fours, re-rolling with the indirect. Uh, and actually, if you think about the meta, the one that we just talked about, the big old Necron Overlord, Oath of Moments is pretty damn good against that army. They
Mhm.
drop a monolith, and you go, okay, cool. I've got reactive drops with my Oblitz. I can bring a Forge Fiend in or my Preds. Oath of Moments means I'm re-rolling against the one target I need to kill this turn. You can jump some Chosen in there, throw a grenade, do whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
focus on one target, right?
so it lines up quite well against that, actually.
Mm.
But it does kind of struggle against those MSU armies that don't have that specifically one target as much as perhaps Renegade Raiders would do, where it can, fall back through your models, out OC on objectives, fall back and charge. Doesn't matter about getting tied up. Whereas maybe that's better against Sisters, maybe. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah, this is Liam's list. He's got a pretty
This is
unique
so cool. Oh my
loadout of
god,
characters. And this
Liam
is
is so cool.
I think this is also why Chaos Space Marines is really popular too, right? It has the best souping options in the game too, right? I don't know why this army can soup like 4 different armies
This
in
isn't
single
even
summon.
soup, mate. This is just CSM.
Oh, they just get all this stuff.
They
Oh,
just have
okay.
100 characters.
I thought Fabius Bar was a Death Guard character. He's
No,
souping.
no.
Oh, sick. But he's got one, two, three, 5 different characters. Let's go, baby. Chaos Lord, which I'm assuming this is just an enhancement for more damage. Cypher for the Vect, which I think almost every CSM player is playing.
Very good.
Bile, which gives Fabius Bile, which gives +1 toughness, I want to say, and fights first.
He gives it a blank to the chosen unit,
Oh, he gives a
and
blank
just
and
him
toughness.
himself is quite good. Yeah, I think it's strength and toughness, something like
Yeah,
that. But
and
that
then
with
you've
the
got
10 chosen brick is a very
mm,
powerful combination.
mhm. And you've
Uh,
got Huron and Lucius. One of these guys give fights first, I believe.
yeah,
Um,
Lucius does.
cool, nice. And he is the Emperor's Children guy, right?
He is. So is Fabius,
Sick.
technically.
Oh, nice. Some cultists. 1, 2 units of legionaries. 2
Mhm.
units of noise marines, which are
Fair
great
play.
if you put them in the Rhino, right? They've got a nice combo, I think, between like they're kind of a nice sweet spot between the rubrics and like legionaries, right?
They're
You
cheap.
can yeah, you can utilize the firing deck with them nicely, and they still have some combat.
Mhm.
Um, and so then you also get a couple of rhinos utilizing the firing deck. I think 2 Predator Destructors is just super common. A lot of people see playing 3. 1 unit of 5 chosen, a unit of 10 chosen, and like we talked about, the 2 units of a blitz as well.
So Liam's list design, he never gets more than two of things. Like he always looks for other options instead of getting third units or maxing out on things. So you'll see that with his list design. It'll always be kind of little funky extra bits like that.
Yeah, yeah. Sweet list. I know Liam was toying around with a couple of different factions. So really cool to see that he landed on this. Boris Michev from our team, who's not playing
Mhm.
LGT, was also going to play something super similar as well. So I've fallen a victim to these re-rolling obliterators and forge fiends, mate. They are with my monolith effect, and it can be a bit brutal.
Does he have a forge fiend in this list?
No, he doesn't have one,
He
but
doesn't
Boris
know.
Boris snuck through a cheeky 12 damage with his forge fiend into me.
This is a cool list. This is awesome.
But
Mhm.
how are we looking? Is it going to overperform or is it going to be on par
Go on,
or
let's hear your
underperform?
take, Dave. What's your take?
I think for the average player, I think it's going to be on par, bang on par.
I think CSM are going to underperform.
Okay, I can see that.
Oh, it's right on the edge.
Let's go on par, but I'm happy to put it at the bottom of on par because I also
Mm.
expect that. I also accept that it is the second most rated faction as well.
I think they're good, but I don't think they're very good.
They don't.
CSM.
They don't really have the raw power that they used to, right? They're not as
Mm.
scary. Like when you used to play against them, you felt like they just had infinite amount of things. You're
Mhm.
just like, oh, I've killed like 8 units of their melee, and it's like, yeah, they've still got like 2 shooting pieces and 3 units left. And you're like, wait, what? They used to
Mhm.
be so hyper efficient,
Yep.
but they don't have the stratagem suite in the detachments that also give them the crazy damage now,
Mhm.
which is a bit different than what they used to be, right?
Yeah, and especially these, but they're not really the scariest thing for CSM for me was always the warp talents. Because the
Okay.
warp talents create this situation where you just can't deal with them. They're like indirect fire,
Yep.
and that doesn't really exist so much, both with the nerf and also the points on
Yep.
them.
And the terrain set, I think, as well. Yep.
Yeah, so they're not terrifying CSM. Once you kill a few of their bits, you know exactly where the rest of their bits are going to go,
Yep.
and it becomes very easy to just methodically pick them apart. And I
Yep.
think a lot of people, across all levels of this tournament, are going to struggle a little bit with loss of momentum as the game goes on with CSM.
Yep. It's definitely still an army you have to actually think and play
Mhm.
rather than just bludgeon your opponent with.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
And
Because
I
you don't
think
have that number of assets anymore.
before you could bludgeon them, you just send
Yep.
everything in, and then they die quicker than
Mm.
you die. But now you die quicker than they die, so
Hmm.
everything has to do with its job.
Yep. 100%. There we
Yeah.
go. Tyranids up next. Oh,
Oh,
this is an interesting faction because I probably would have played Tyranids if there was a nerf to the army that I'm playing.
okay.
Probably. Oh, maybe. No. Well, I assuming Necron's also got nerfed. I might have gone Tyranids. I think Tyranids are quite strong and have got an all-round play, but it would obviously depend on how everything else has changed. So let's bring up some of this. There's the problem with Tyranids, guys, is that there is a huge amount of list variety. Actually, I mean, it's not a problem. It's great for the faction. You can play Invasion Fleet. You can play Vanguard. You can play Synaptic Nexus. You can play Crusher Stampede. And actually, I don't think there's any real consensus here on what the best archetype is,
Mhm.
especially for UKTC. But there was a guy that did quite well recently at a super major. Nathan played against Jack Tight, I believe,
In the finals,
in the
right?
finals.
Yep.
So let's just go through his list. I think his list is largely similar to what it was before. And this is a build that is somewhat similar to what the USA played at WTC as well.
Does it surprise you, Dave, the Tyranids are so popular?
No, because no, not at all actually. Because I actually think they're really fun to play.
Mm.
Because the build diversity is there. Like for example, if you play Vanguard, you're playing different models than if you're playing Synaptic Nexus. And if you're playing Crusher Stampede, you can actually get utility to play a lot of stuff. I actually wanted to try like a triple non emissary OC15 walk through walls kind of list that
Mhm.
mark every objective. So I think there's lots to play in there. You know, they got loan up, they got, reactive move, depending on what style you want to play. And Invasion Fleet, you can play old one iron counter fixes and stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think they're I think they're cool. I think a lot of people have Tyranid collections probably at home, and simply just buying one or two models, enabling them to play Tyranids, and then they have to play the detachment depending on the models they have. They probably still enjoy playing that. Like if you got a lot of warriors, maybe you want to play
Mhm.
Vanguard, for example, right?
I'd love to know what the most popular armies are in terms of what people own. I
Oh,
wish that statistic was out there because I always had in my head that Tyranids are very niche because I
yeah,
thought people might not, only certain people will like to collect Tyranids, but I'm obviously very wrong with
yeah.
that.
Maybe we should run a poll someday. Try and get some info
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
We could poll every army. So, all right, if
Mhm.
you're listening, we're going to run a poll soon to try and figure out what armies you actually own at a 2,000 point
Mm.
level. But yeah, so this is Crusher Stampede. It's effectively a pretty big gun line, more or
Mhm.
less, but it has the component of quite a good amount of durability, quite a good amount of OC, and a decent amount of maneuverability,
Mhm.
particularly because of the walk through wall strat. And it has a good amount of survivability between the ability to be -1 to hit through the strat and the Maleceptors being -1. You know, it stacks a couple of units with 2 up saves and Maleceptors with 4 up inbuns, Swarmlord with Vict as well. And it's got some ability to strip cover with some Pyrovores. And it's also got some fast OC with Hormagaunts and Gargoyles. So I think it's a little bit of a two-dimensional list in that it's got big bugs that shoot, and it's got some fast OC. But I think even being two-dimensional, I think it's still quite a strong
Mhm.
archetype to play. For Crusher Stampede, that is, yeah.
It's quite cool. It is quite cool, but is this more of a teams list than a singles list? Is
Mm,
it reaching the finals because Nathan's a very good player?
yeah.
It's hard to tell, but because it doesn't look like a singles list to me,
Yep.
especially in this meta, because probably
Mm,
the best is. So I think it's good against the Necrons,
okay.
which is good,
Okay,
but
interesting.
I don't know. Do you not think so?
I think the ability to go from one side of the board to the other and then nuke a couple of bugs at once. And the menhirs are also
Okay.
flat six. So,
Okay, maybe the it kills gets killed by the Necrons quicker than it kills the Necrons.
yeah, I don't know
Mm.
for a fact, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, you might be right because I think it doesn't then it doesn't win any big vehicle
I
games.
don't think it wins the shootout. And that's
Mm,
the reason why I think that list type might struggle against stronger players
mhm,
because it is not very dynamic in a certain
mhm,
sense. It actually struggles somewhat to attack your opponent's objective if
mhm,
you are um, if your opponent's experienced in knowing your threat ranges because it doesn't have like a huge melee trigger, that you can go and out OC something.
mhm,
And at the same time, it can be a little bit vulnerable to getting tagged on your expansion objective, which can outlimit your output or out OC you.
mhm.
That's kind of the way that I look at it as well.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so I mean, Tyranids, I think there's such a big diversity of them. I think they're going to underperform personally.
I think they're just going to underperform. I don't think this is the right list if you want to, right faction if you want to do better at a tournament in terms of
Yep.
result. If you want to
Mhm.
have fun and if you want to have the success that you would expect to have, I think you're going to come pretty close to it, but probably maybe underperform a little bit on power level.
Yep.
But
I actually think it's super hard to get the right unit composition in your
mm,
list based on the meta here. Because like, do you play Zone Thropes? Do you play 3 Exos, 2 Melees? Do you play Vanguard for Morlock Mortals? Or do you play them for the Tyranid Warrior Brick, depending on what you think is going to be the meta? Like, you could actually say that, given that Necrons are so popular and Dark Angels maybe as well, that maybe the Vanguard list was kind of going to be quite good here because they can deal a huge amount of damage with the Warrior Brick into a big target. So
mm,
it's tough to evaluate that, man. I don't know where I would have went.
it's a tough one. I mean, if we look at it from the top tier of players, I would actually argue the Tyranids fall off even at the very top for
Hmm.
actually trying to win this tournament. I think
Mm,
they struggle against the very best players using the very best armies,
yeah.
regardless of what you run with Tyranids.
Yeah. I tend to agree as well. All right, number 4. This is surprising. Got World Eaters.
It's UK, mate. We
It
love our
just,
world eaters, don't we?
at 43, 5.3%.
I
Whew.
think everyone loves world eaters across the world, to be honest.
World
To be
lovers.
honest.
Yeah.
They're
It's
popular in America, they're popular here.
I kind of found it as interesting is after WTC, us as a team, we kind of after WTC, we're like, okay, let's start looking at the UKTC maps, right? And the very first time I looked at a UKTC map, the very first thing I did was I measured how far away the back of my expansion objective was to the closest staging ruin on my opponent's side.
Mhm.
And it's incredibly far. It's
Mm.
so hard to get from your safe middle ruin staging onto the back of their objective. And actually, worse than that, it doesn't even matter because you can put a unit there that can hold it and then heroic onto it if you need to make the charge to close that gap. And that simple strategy, I think, is extremely effective against the combat armies, particularly on UKTC, which I think is sadly, I think it's also another shooting based meta as well. And I think we'll see that based on what the top people are taking here as well. But I think World Eaters are the army that actually has the speed to close those gaps at a guaranteed rate because they have the
Mhm.
flat 6 advance and they have the +2 to move, which actually means that you end on their objective regardless.
Mhm.
And they kind of hit hard enough as well there. So I can actually understand why they're a bit more popular than, say, something like Dark Angels or Blood Angels, which I think maybe traditionally on maybe like Games Workshop or WTC are the more melee orientated armies of preference, maybe.
Yep. Yep.
Does that make sense?
I think the terrain is suited for them, personally.
Yep. Yep.
I think the staging has improved significantly for World Eaters from the previous UKTC pack.
Yep.
Saying that, World Eaters is an interesting one because World Eaters in Europe have never been popular amongst like the most successful or top players.
Hmm.
In USA, you have Anthony Vanella, who's kind of pushed it forward at the highest level. But we don't really get that much over here in UK, despite them being very, very popular.
Mm.
So I think that World Eaters are going to do better than they have done in the past in terms of
Hmm.
tournament performance. So I'd probably put them on par here.
On par?
On
Okay.
par, even though they're very represented for an army we feel, doesn't get much tournament success.
I feel like the average World Eater player, given the representation, is going to do better than Chaos Space Marines for sure.
Mhm.
I kind of think Chaos Space Marines is a bit like this right now.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I've got them in my head.
Yeah, I think CSM and Tyranids are very similar, especially
Yeah.
considering how represented they are.
Yep. Honestly, kind of similar armies. One just doesn't have transports, right? They've got shooting backbones, and then they've got melee compositions to them as well.
Yeah.
Vic is Vic is shrieking at the sight of his favorite army being compared to Tyranids.
No, I think Tyranids are cool, especially after playing Space Marine. Killing some Tyranids has been fun.
Well, I got some worries if you want.
Oh no, not again.
Righty up, the next one, which
yes.
is, if we're going to be looking at overperforming, here we go. Sisters of
Survive.
Battle.
I know.
42 players, which is actually more than I thought.
This is high. This is really high for Sisters.
5.18%. And I think that shows that people are comfortable with the strength of this army, right?
Yeah. I think the Bringers of Flame detachment and the list archetype, it just builds itself.
Yep.
That it's so accessible for people now. And Sisters have always had a problem that it's hard for people to get into the army. It's always been complex with lots of expensive models to purchase. But Bringers of Flame brings the accessibility to everyone.
Yep.
And it's quite a straightforward play style to understand. So it's I understand it being so popular. It's a very strong army. And if we did have a balanced state, I expect it probably would have got hit the hardest out of anything in the game.
For sure. I actually think Sisters maybe have been one of the lower represented factions historically in the UK, right? Very low, actually, like bottom
100%.
5, bottom 8, maybe. So actually seeing them right at the top here goes to show, because it does take time for people to accumulate the collections, to choose to invest time to learn this army and play it, right? And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's kind of shrouded in a ambiguity of like how to play this faction and how the enhancements and the synergies all actually come together on the board. I guess people understand the Miracle Dice mechanic and whatnot, but how you use that in relation to your whole macro strategy, a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, so, I used to have to spend quite a bit of time explaining my army to people when I bring Sisters to a tournament. Now I went to the Glasshammer GT and I didn't have to explain my army to anyone. Everybody knew what it already did. So
advantage. Yeah. Print the best assault rule on an army. Great. So, I mean, I think Vic and I are probably seeing eye to eye on this one. This, I think, is going to be overperforming more than Necrons, personally, particularly because it also has a lower combination of being less represented, and I think it will do better on average as well.
Yeah, I think this is a very strong army in singles, and I think it's easy to play. You can't go wrong. You just blow your opponent up, and you're still able to score your points.
Yep, super reliable. You can always auto advance 6, and you can always auto advance 6, melt someone, castigate someone, whatever flame is where you need to be. It's got a good combination of shooting elements plus also holding your own objective as well, right?
Yeah, let's run through my list, Dave, because I
think, of course, go through it. You got some spice?
Go on, get it up. So it's interesting because I think there's been a little bit of development in the Bringers of Flame list since WTC, because I think only Spain brought Exorcists at the WTC tournament.
Whereas you just can't help yourself, can you?
Just
can't help yourself, mate. Do a little bit of cheeky indirect there.
Triple Night Spinner last year. I was this close to bringing triple Exorcists, but the Exorcists answer a lot of problems in the meta, and they sit quite nicely on UKTC terrain. It's kind of a decision point, really, whether you lean more into Seraphim, which I think are very good on UKTC terrain, or you lean more into the Exorcists instead. I went for the Exorcists. I know Jack Tithe also went for a couple of Exorcists as well. I've got 2 in this list to go alongside the usual triple Castigator.
Let's go through from top to bottom. How about that?
Yeah, sweet. So we've got the Triumph of St. Catherine, which I think that's auto-included in every list. And we've got 2 single cannonesses here, which is something that's becoming more and more popular because at only 50 points, they're actually really good value for their points. They get a once per game 2-up invuln, and they just do stuff for you.
Yep.
We've got 2 Dialogus, which are, again, cheap characters.
Yeah.
And then a big thing is running some way of getting rid of bad Miracle Dice, either with the enhancement to do more damage, or in this case, I've got the Manual of St. Griselda.
Yep.
Playing against Necrons, I realized that the 6s you have on the Miracle Dice are the single most important thing for survival.
Yep. When
Uh,
because you can, of course, for people that don't know, if you're playing in Sisters, they have a 6-up in runs. So even if you're
mhm,
AP4, AP5, they can always Miracle 6,
yep.
which is huge against things like the Death Ray. You can pop smoke, then you can 6 a dice, and it does negate a lot of the output from some of these big things like Monoliths.
Yeah, 100%. So the Manual of Saint Griselda basically lets you combine 2 miracle dice and often gives you another 6 every battle
Yep.
round
Can
as
you do
well.
that once every command phase, is it?
Yeah, once in the
Okay,
command
nice.
phase. So every battle round you usually get 2 sixes, for one from the Triumph, one from the Manual of Saint Griselda.
Cool. So it kind of gives
Uh,
you like 4 extra 6s, because like turn 2 onwards, you're kind of doing it, I presume, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, the dialogues are just cheap and they get rid of battle shock, so they're actually
Yep.
really nice for 30 points. We've got 2 immolators with 2 units of dominions being split inside them.
Yep.
Something that I'm doing a little differently is that you usually see the dominions with melter guns. I've got one with melter guns, but one with flamers.
Okay.
And the flamers are kind of interesting because the strength 6 breakpoint on the sisters flamers when they get within 12 inches is quite nice in this meta. I think
Mm-hmm.
you start wounding a lot of things on 3s or 4s.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that unit, especially with a canoness attached to it. So I've got one of my canonesses
Yep.
usually in
So
there.
it's kind of as low as you go on the emulated Dominion package, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people run 3, but I found
Yeah.
in UKTC terrain, actually, the third one gets stuck and a bit lost.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
I'm running
Kind of
2.
sticks out.
To be honest, I could see an argument for only running 1 immolator on UKTC
Ah.
as well, which is kind of interesting. That was the triple exorcist build, had only 1 immolator.
Yep.
And then we've got 3 castigators. My only slightly bit of different tech here is that people are often running 3 autocannons or 2 autocannons.
Hmm.
I've actually gone for 2 battle cannons here.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I really like the strength 10 breakpoint on the
Okay.
actual battle cannon, especially if we're considering that we're likely to see more Doomsday Orks, which are T9,
Mm-hmm.
or we're more likely to see other sisters players with their T10 vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I think the battle cannon is a nice profile to have for playing long range shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I've still got one with autocannons, just playing out of strat reserve, getting up really close. But I want to play backfield with my castigators usually.
Yep. Fair.
Battle cannons, and also it's very interesting because there's a potentially tricky game against accursed cultists and Black Templars, and
Mm.
having blast on the battle cannons does give you a few more shots.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Makes sense.
After the Dominions, we've got Exorcists here.
Yep.
Exorcist, the indirect profile is ridiculous because it's AP3 for some unknown reason.
But
Like,
let's be fair. You're not actually shooting them indirectly for 5 turns, right? You're
no,
going to come out and
no.
shoot them. It's a D6 las cannon shot platform. A lot of the times it hits on 3s, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a low strength las cannon, really.
Yep.
But they're nice. They cause battle shock when you hit someone with them,
That's cool.
and they force deadly demise on 5+ as well, which is good and
Get
bad.
those Necrons. Fucking
Yeah,
deadly demise them.
that's it.
Explode that monolith in their army. Oh, it's
and
so good.
and then in this list, I've got 20 Seraphim. So I've got 10-5-5.
Yep.
I think Jack Tithe and Mitch are both running 10-10,
Yep. Okay,
which is a
slowed it down.
perfectly fine thing. But me, the way I like to play is I like to just chuck stuff out
And
constantly.
no canonist jump pack, right?
No jump back cannon, so I haven't
Cool.
got the hammer unit with
Yep.
for the dev wounds. It's just a little too many points when you're running the exorcist as well, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But I know Mitch has gone for that,
Yep.
and he's sacrificed something else to get
I
that.
mean, I feel like I probably would have gone for the 10-5-5 too. Actually, they're having the 5-man deep strike to block your opponent's rapid ingresses
Yeah.
is really nice. Like, I've got the 5 Scions, and that's the best role for them.
Mhm.
If your opponent doesn't focus on pushing a unit forward so they can rapid ingress their own unit forward, then you can just deep strike right in front of them, and it blocks it off right from the
Yeah.
get-go, which is good.
There's a lot of plays you can do with rapid ingress that are much better value on a low cost unit than the full 10 brick.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have 10-10, you end up doing those plays with a 10 brick.
Yep.
Whereas the 5 brick coming on, stealing extra primary, blocking out space is kind of useful in my head anyway, but we'll see if the damage drops off because of it.
Yep. No, I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
Nice.
my glass hammer list was basically the same as this, but I had Celestine and the Demonifuge in there.
Yeah.
And I just dropped a couple of pieces, and all of a sudden I have 2 exorcists in the list. So otherwise, the backbone's the same. So this is a much better list than what I was running last time.
I like the Exorcist. And their D6 shots blast, 10 minus 3.
Not blast, not blast.
Okay.
So they're not. They're just D6. They're not very reliable, but 10 minus 3 D6 damage means that they're incredibly good at killing light vehicles.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Doomsday Arcs and Rhinos.
And so are they D6 shots or are they D6 plus 2? I forget.
Oh, sorry, D6 plus 2.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so an average of 5 shots.
Mhm.
You get 2 or 3 hits or something like that. Or,
Yeah.
depending on what you're shooting, you might hit the miracle to hit roll and then, go for the wound roll on the 3, for example, right?
Yeah, you just hold a dice all the way through, and usually you can
damage.
pump through the damage at the end, or
Yep.
you can go for a hit and a wound if you're just doing some attrition.
Yeah, I mean, even against like a Lehman Russ, or a thousand. I mean, against a Thousand Sun Sorcerer, it's just
Oh yeah,
on disc, or whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
just boom, 6 damage, right?
Yeah, A Thousand Suns, have dropped off a little bit in popularity here,
Yeah,
but the
for sure,
X's are very good in that particular matchup.
for sure. Nice, nice. There we go, sisters. I think we're at the top of the meta right now, for sure, right?
I think so.
Nice. Alrighty. Oh, well, kind of fitting that we have Guard on the same exact number of players, 42, 5.18%, which
Ooh, this
is
is amazing for
surprising as
me.
well.
Very amazing.
But if you look at the lists, they're not all playing 18 Bulgarians, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think we're gonna put Guard in overperform, and I think it's actually
I don't know
this
if
is a tough
they
one
do
actually.
overperform. Okay, so it depends if you're looking at it overall or you're looking at the very top level.
Yeah. I was just about to get to that. I actually think if we look at the overall for the faction, I'm going to put it below World Eaters.
I agree.
Below World Eaters, I think we're going to put it there.
I
Okay,
agree.
cool. But I think, I mean, I guess just like time and time again, we've seen that this is a faction of immense strength if you play it correctly. And I love Astra Militarum players, but Lord forbid we have a bit of special faction people sometimes. All right, cool. My list. Cool. So once I didn't see that there was a points update the week before, I kind of just breathed a sigh of relief because I kind of already had a couple of ideas of what I wanted to play. And I think the core shell of Astra, I had down like the core 1,500 points, I would say. 600, 540 points of which was Bulgarian. What I would say is that I think Astra is definitely one of those armies that strives and thrives depending on how you've tweaked your list for the meta and the terrain. And I think that because it has such a deep data sheet ability, there's so many units, it really does reward players that do that. And so, like myself, I try and optimize those last couple of points. So I've got a couple of units that most people aren't playing, and we'll see how it goes. So let's get the awkwardness out of the way. I'm not playing a command squad because I'm not bad at the game. So,
Dave, you're the only one.
Actually, what's funny is because when I first started practicing on UKTC, I was like, okay, I'm going to play 18 Bulgar and whatever. I noticed very quickly that because of the way that the staging ruins are, you don't actually need a 24-inch order. And I was like, okay, in my head, I was like, well, I'm obviously going to need a command squad if I'm playing 18 Bulgarian. But the reality is actually that your staging point is so close to your home objective that you can hold your home objective with Leontis and then also order your key units anyway. So I was kind of like, well, okay, I'll get 130 points for free. So, okay, cool. So I've got the Scion command squad because they give sustained, which is awesome. They also get 3 special weapons. They can get 4 special weapons, but they get 3, which is super useful because you're going to be putting them in basically a massive kill team, which is awesome. Got Demolisher Tank Commander with the plasma cannons. Got Gaunt's Ghost, which I found to be really good.
Yes.
And it's not only super fun, but I knew that I wanted to play them, so I also wanted to be rewarded for playing units which they could synergize with as well. So there's a unit later on which I'll get to on that. Leontis, just going to rock him by himself. I kind of like him on the UKTC terrain, rocking him by himself too, because you can give him the 3-inch order, and then he can move 15 inches across that new terrain piece. And actually, all of a sudden, he can just yeet straight into the middle, into combat. So he's actually a lot easier to activate once you, on that turn 4 and 5, when the resources are low, and he can just come in with 6 attacks, 2 pistol, like effectively 8 attacks, which is kind of nice. Frees him up a little bit. Okay, I've got 2x10 Catachan Jungle Fighters, which I think are just an amazing unit. It's part of the reason why Guard is so strong, is that this data sheet here is just 10-man OC2, 2 Flamers, can move 9 out of a Rhino, a Chimera. Super, super good. I mean, I think, if you're not playing these, you should be probably playing more. And I've got 10 Cadian Shock Troops, mainly because I wanted the sticky objective, so that you can sticky it with your... you can start on turn 1 sticky, throw a Catachan Jungle Fighter unit out of your Chimera, then recycle them into the Chimera, then you get the Melted Plasma on the firing deck of the Chimera after that as well. So a good unit you can leapfrog after you sticky something, which is really good. there's a lot of Necrons, so maybe you'll be keeping them at home. But you can also obviously join the Altus if you're playing against Exorcists, for example. You can make it so you're not going to get one shot.
Coming for you.
I've got the standard loadout of 18 Bulgrin. I'm going to tell everyone right now that this is a miserable datasheet to play with. It's a miserable datasheet to play against. I don't know why they have 4 attacks. I don't know why they're -1 damage. I don't know why they're 7-1-2. Don't ask me. But this
Why
datasheet,
4 up in one as well? Come on.
this
Give us a
datasheet
break.
desperately needs a change. It is really bad, and it's bad for the game. And I held it off as long as possible, not playing 18 of these. But you know what?
They're too good. Just get in there, man.
Yeah.
It's fine.
All right, I've got a little bit of spice. Got the old Rapier laser destroyer battery.
Cool.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
that's good. I've been doing my little kit bash one.
Oh,
right
he's got it. He's got it
I've
ready.
got it right there, mate. Funny story. I wanted a 30-point unit that I could outflank and could do an objective and a secondary with, and then I was like, well, for 5 more points, I can get 2 las cannons. So you know what? I've spent 5 points, so I got
Here
2
we
las
go.
cannons. So
Keep a
twin
kill
linked as
count on
well.
that guy.
Oh, mate.
Oh, yes.
Bit of player on that, mate. He's a heavy hitter. I got a unit of 5 Scions and a unit of 10. 5 Scions for just a 5-mana unit that deep strike is obviously just sick value. We talked about death marks earlier, and they have a plasma and melter. So you know what? You can still shoot them when you come down, or do an action, or block someone's rapid ingress, or do whatever. Right? Why would you not play them? I got the big 10-man unit. The 10-man unit in my head is super good on this terrain, mainly because it provides you with a deep strike threat that can just delete one infantry unit, or it can delete multiple infantry units, which is really powerful. Not only because you can rapid ingress Overwatch with it, and if they're on objective, you get sustain 1 and lethal. So they combo because they have sustain and lethal against infantry. But this unit just absolutely hoses infantry like no tomorrow. I was going to go with the volley gun for more rapid fire stacking, but ultimately I went for the melter guns because I thought Necrons were going to be a little bit more popular. And actually, I wanted to have a melter gun where if I thought in my head, most of the times, if I were to come down, sure, I could shoot some ACDCs better with my volley guns, but most of the time, I'm probably going to be playing a game where I'm going to be against a Rhino or a Monolith or a Castigator or an Immolator, for example, right? And the melter gun, probably 8 times out of 10, is going to be better there. So I ended up going with the melter gun there.
Yeah, good pick.
They're an awesome, you just rapid ingress them, then they order themselves move 9, the ghosts come back down, order them +1 to hit, +1 rapid fire, and they just blast away at something, and then they charge something else. Really awesome.
Nice combo.
Got a Hellhound, super important, really good for the strip cover ability, especially if you're playing against Dark Angels. I'm going to slow roll that one, keep it back for when they need to jam eventually, because the +1 AP basically on your army is going to be absolutely critical once they AOC against you as well. So really happy. I would have liked to have played 2, and I had listed 2, but I just need to play a bit more strategic in the matchups where you need to have it being played strategic rather than just an annoying toughness 2 asset sometimes. Got the Lehman Russ Battle Tank, an old trusty favorite of mine.
Your fave.
Multi-melters. Just gets on the objectives, mate. Just,
beautiful.
Get them in there. Gets on objectives, got some OC, 2-up save, and then you tag him in combat, you shoot someone else, and then multi-melters the guy he's in combat with on the objective. So, yeah, I love him. He's been really good. And then 2 Chimeras for that. And then something that I don't think anyone else has taken.
Yeah, what's this about?
The 3 Scout Sentinels. Right. So now that the reinforcement strat ability for every army has been nerfed, you can only use it once. I wanted to have 2 units which I really focus my reinforcement on, either the 10 Scions or a Sentinel-based unit. Now, I was originally playing Armored Sentinels for the 2-up save, gum up the board, make sure your opponent can't do stuff, basically make sure your opponent can't play the game. The Plasma ones have reroll wounds, so they hit the Plasmas against Monoliths and Doomsday Arcs and stuff. They reroll wounds, so actually it's super nice there. But the more that I played them, the more I realized actually what you can do with a Scout Sentinel on the UKTC board is, and this is a tip for you, Vic, because you got a lot of vehicles, mate. But if you deploy your Ghost, you can block your opponent's infiltrate. Then they can Scout 9, move 10, shoot 48 inches with 6 las cannons. So actually, if you go first, and I think in the meta right now, a lot of armies have a problem taking advantage of going first. So I wanted an element in my army where I could threaten a first turn strike on a unit that I wanted to respawn, and that was going to provide other synergies. So if I go first, I can move 19 inches, shoot 6 las cannons. It means either you're going to have to deploy your vehicles far back, where they're not going to be able to shoot me on turn 1, or I'm going to come at you with a unit that I'm going to try and respawn anyway. And then even if you tag them up, I'm going to spot for reroll ones, for example.
Mhm.
But they're huge bases as well, and you can actually use -1 damage on them too. So between that, they're actually an excellent move block ability because they still move 10 inches. So when the meta came out, I was extremely happy that I went with this choice because it's going to provide me with a bit of kicker if I go first. And I think just from in my head right now, UKTC is a lot about durability. Having a strong, durable shooting army is, I think, probably going to be the more successful armies, depending on for rounds 1 to 5. And so I think they fit that key really well.
Yeah,
And,
great pick. Great
180 points. Nice. So, someone's got some emulators or some castigators that they want to sneak down their side of their back object, their home ruin, then you can move super
Get them
far.
off the board.
Yeah, try and shoot and punish them. And even if you don't kill them, you're going to deal, I don't know, 8 or 9 damage. They're going to shoot some sentinels back. There's no chance of killing 3 sentinels through smoke, probably, right? And cover. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Good pick. 180
yeah.
points, not bad at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same. You could play a Lehman Russ variant over it, right? But would you want something fast and hard hitting into the right meta? But it's a bit of a meta call that you have to try and make, try and kind of keep your finger on the pulse there. And you can order them with Gaunt's Ghost as well. So.
I mean, one of the strongest things about Sisters is hitting those different kind of threat vectors with them.
Yep.
And the immolator does that because you go, you advance, you scout, advance, and all of a sudden you're 27 inches off your deployment zone line.
Yep.
And then you can disembark your guys and shoot. And then you put ignore cover on something and 2 exorcists are shooting something.
Yep.
Just having that threat there is kind of huge. So I see it. You're doing the same thing with these scouts.
And obviously you've got the flat advance 6 on the castigators as well to shoot, right? So you can get those deep angles to cut your opponent off, where if they do make that middle point move to get onto an objective the next turn, you're going to be able to make your 8-inch move to just shoot right into that corner.
Yeah. Oh, there's no hiding from Sisters on UKTC. It's really, really good terrain.
You just got to survive.
You just got to survive a turn,
There we go. I think Guard are really strong right now. I'm with my list. I
think so.
Well, yeah, we're going to keep them where they are, of course, on par. But
I think on the top tier of this tournament, and it's very interesting because Guard actually have taken a series of nerfs over time.
But everything has.
Yeah, everything has. But I actually think Guard have been one of the strongest armies for singles play for quite a while now.
Yep.
And despite taking all of these nerfs, in my opinion, I think they sit with the best kind of overall matrix played at a high level. Into the widest range of armies for singles. I think they're a very, very strong singles army.
Yep.
And I think because the UK uniquely has 2 of the best players in you and Nas on Guard, and it's 2 of the best players in the country as well who are on Guard, I think that makes it set up very uniquely in the UK for Guard to be very, very powerful.
Yep.
And I have my, if I was going to bet on something to win the event, I'd probably bet on one of you 2 with Guard here. This is set up perfectly for you guys.
It doesn't really, and Nassim and I, Nassim Fushane, have played Guard. Both of us have played Guard for a long time. Nas played it at WTC and absolutely killed it as well. He's got a great list as well if you want to check it out. He's playing some more Lehman Russ battle tanks as well, which is awesome to see. And so, if you copy his build or copy my build, they're very, very good lists. But, it's got the combination of, it's got great melee. Like, Bulgren are just great in melee. They can take on Deathwing Knights. If they haven't got AOC up, like, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. They've got deep strike threats. They've got durability. They've got the ability. They've got OC and buckets, which is a huge factor. And it's difficult to see a bad matchup for them if you build right. You can bounce against the hypercrypt lists, but at the same time, you can tag the crap out of that whole army to the point where you can lock it down and it can't really play the game. And if you're a very, very good player, the melee builds are very solvable on UKTC, I think, by just having good tight play. And it doesn't really matter about the dice rolls per se. As long as you gun the board up, slow stuff down, then they're going to have to come push out. They'll kill a bunch of stuff, but you'll kill all them back and tag a bunch of stuff and move block them and do everything like that.
So I've seen this a few times now, where you have a player who's very, very good on an army they have mastery on, and the army itself is very strong. I've seen it with when Dark Angels, a long time ago, were very good. Manny Chima won a series of tournaments with them. And then you saw Josh Roberts win a series of tournaments with the Wraiths, the Canoptek Court. And when an army doesn't get nerfed and you're able to kind of achieve mastery on it, you end up in a position where if it's an army with good matchups across the board, that's how you win these big tournaments. So, no, day pressure's on.
You need to get, well, any tournament though as well, and you know it as well, is that you need to get lucky. Historically, I've
Yeah.
done terribly at LGT, so although I played
Only
guard last year.
LGT.
I played
Yeah.
guard last year. I was trolling a bit, but or having fun. But yeah. You need a bit of luck, of course. But it's nice being able to play an army that I know so well that I can just don't need to play that much games. I can go into it.
Yeah.
I've got 4 games, whatever, going into this, right? And I'm feeling like super confident. I don't really need to practice, a bunch of matchups or anything like that. So
Not getting the balance slate here, I think, has worked out really nicely.
yes,
So
100%.
this is one. This is where the guard go up to S tier.
Come on, guard.
Let's break the internet.
God versus sisters. We all want to see it, mate. All right, let's zoom through this one. Space Marines, regular old Space Marines. I mean,
I
gotta
think
be underperforming.
they've got it, considering how overpresented they are.
Who is playing regular Space Marines? Guys, what are we doing in the UK?
They're the most popular one. They're very, very popular. In fact, it's amazing they're not at the top. But if you add up all the Space Marines, they are at the top by a lot.
You know what I suspect? I suspect that might be a BCP list thing. People might have said Adeptus Astartes instead of putting their actual faction.
True.
That would make sense. Blood Angels. I think I'm going to go through underperform for Blood Angels personally. Yeah.
They're not fast enough.
I think on these boards, they really struggle, yeah. I think these boards are so open. And, I hate to... we've celebrated UKTC a lot, but I think this rotation of maps, I think, has been slightly disappointing for myself, personally. I saw them pre-WTC and got really excited, but then when I actually played them, I found them to be very repetitive. And I think they suffer from the same symptoms as the last pack does, which on the face of it it looks like it'd be the opposite. But actually, if you look at it, a lot of these armies, like what's great again, big fast shooting armies, right? And on WTC, that definitely wasn't the case. So the terrain is having a huge impact in a meta that hasn't changed a whole lot here. If you look at Thousand Suns, for example, arguably the best army on WTC. Obviously, they got nerfed, but still, if Thousand Suns was playing on WTC, I would still probably play 3 Mutolith Beasts, and it would be a fantastic list, I think. But I think it's just something with our design of our terrain sets. They're so 90-degree angular that it makes for... Yeah, I'm not sure. Did you kind of think the same thing, Vic?
I think if you ran triple Mutilith Vortex Beast in a singles meta, you will get absolutely massacred.
Yeah.
In this current meta.
You rock up to someone you don't know. They've got 3 Castigators, and they would just... Or 2
or
models,
like, or the
just blow
Necron
them off the
list.
board.
We're seeing so many people put anti-tank into their list, and the Mutiliths do die to it. Without the ability to do indirect fire with T-Suns. We've kind of skipped ahead. Let's do T-Suns. With T-Suns, because they're very interesting, because I think if the indirect fire nerf hadn't happened, I think T-Suns would be right up there as probably one of the strongest armies on this UKTC terrain set.
Definitely.
Because
one of your biggest worries, sorry to cut you off, would probably be 18 Bulgrin.
I mean, now you've got no chance. It's just impossible. You're never winning that game. But you also aren't winning against World Eaters, in my opinion.
No.
You also aren't even managing Blood Angels anymore. It's really tough for you to deal with any melee pressure without having indirect fire. So even though T-Suns is still doing well on all the metrics, the statistics metrics, especially in the USA, I think for a large tournament which gathers all of the best players in the country, T-Suns are really going to struggle in a singles meta. Mutilith Vortex Beasts are not, because both the Mutiliths die and the rubrics can't actually activate properly.
And the reason the Mutiliths die is because all of the terrain angles are just straight, hard, parallel, or perpendicular to the board. They don't have these like against the board angles, et cetera, and the lines are so deep that you can shoot them easily from 50 inches away, which on WTC you can't. And that was the big reason why they were so powerful, I think, on WTC, because as soon as they were in range, you were back in range of them, which is completely different on UKTC. You're going to need a temporal surge after that. So let's look up Sacco, Alexander Sacco, obviously the LGT champion.
Yeah. What's he got?
In the year that he beat me, he has got 3 Infernal Master. Why would you not? 2 Sorcerers. So he's got Forbidden Lore and Crystal. So these are untargetable ones. He's got Arm and Disc and Magnus. So this is how many Cabal point is this? Okay, I'm going to have to count it up. 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and
21.
okay, and
He's got 6 rubric squads there.
yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 rubric squads.
Oh,
So playing at the higher Cabal style, which I think probably makes sense comparative to obviously, the build that I played, but you played obviously a pretty similar build at WTC as well. The higher
23.
Cabal.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly right.
but yeah, 21 with Araman is a very good level to play. If
And
you're
the
going
reason we
rubric
probably
heavy.
see that is because you're playing less disc sorcerers, which are really effective for their Cabal points, right?
And no disc sorcerers.
Yeah, just completely
Oh.
ditched it.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, T-Suns are still good, and I'm sure Sacco is still going to do very good. He's got 1 Rhino, which I thought was surprising. Actually, I thought you played, but then
No,
you
I
lose a
think
lot of Cabal points.
1 Rhino's perfect. I think that's the way to do
Yeah.
it.
But
And
this is kind of the problem with T-Suns that I thought, right? Is that you want to play a high Cabal style, but you want to have Rhinos be your primary way of actually dealing damage and pressuring your opponent's objectives, right? Or killing chaff on those objectives. Is the way that I kind of thought about it in my head. Like, you want to have Magnus shooting into that objective and a Rhino in front of him on that objective, but firing decking something small away, But because 2 Rhinos, you do lose what? It's going to be another 3 Cabal off that, so you're already losing 6. So put you at 15 on the board, perhaps. So it's tough.
No, I don't think you play 2 Rhinos. I think it's
But that's
very
what I'm saying. Yeah, I agree.
interesting
Yeah.
the difference in list design here, where he's got 1 naked rubric squads and 5 with attached here. And it's like kind of like this little bit of mission playing and a little bit of attrition using the Rhino and Magnus.
Yep.
And I think that's how it's played until the mid game, where he can overwhelm and just chuck everything forward. It's going to be very interesting if it works. I mean, Sacco's a brilliant player. So he'll probably find a way of making it work, but it's going to be interesting, man. I think they're still going to do well. I do think T-Suns are going to do well because the player number has reduced lower than what I'd expect, which means that you probably have more diehard players on there.
Yeah, I mean, T-Suns are still higher than Dark Angels, for example, right?
Well, that's true.
Which is surprising, right?
Yeah,
that's
true.
I think underperform personally in my head.
Go on, get him in there. Get him on the underperform. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I agree with you.
Higher than Tyranids, though, because Tyranids have more representation.
Yeah.
Blood Angels, do we want to zoom back to this? On par?
Blood Angels, I think
people are used to playing against them, though, man.
I think I'm going to put them as underperform.
Underperform? Actually. I agree.
Oh my God, we're brutal, Dave.
Brutal?
We're ruthless.
All right, the Dark Angels. I'm going to have to go on par with this. I mean, 15 Deathwing Knights, how bloody hard is that to play, right?
I don't think UKTC terrain is well designed for Dark Angels.
I don't think so either, yeah.
I think they end up out in the open a little bit when they want to do anything.
Yep.
And while Deathwing Knights are brutally durable, they're not indestructible.
Yep. In the few games in which I played against them, my opponent and I quickly agreed that actually, because they usually start like 1 or 2 units in Deep Strike, and they always try Rapid Ingress 1. But if you've got half a brain, you just expend your Chimera or whatever like that to block their 5-inch moving unit out another 10 inches, and it means that they functionally don't even have it. So as long as you're diligent in doing that, they very quickly come to the conclusion that they have to just try and stat check you. So they just put everything in the middle, on cover, whatever like that, hunker down, and then they try and, even if you tag them, they can fall back and charge and try and get into you after that, because there's no way that they can move from their staging onto your objective, which is the fundamental problem with the army, I think.
Yeah.
On UKTC, at least. On other ones, it's great, because if you move on other terrain sets, maybe you're going from your staging onto their objective, but you need a 3-inch advance to make a 6-inch charge, for example, right? But on UKTC, that's like you need a 3-inch, and then you're making like a 9, for example, or a 10, which is, yeah.
Will they do well, though? Will they do
on par? Below Chaos Space Marines, I think.
Oh my God, Dave! Oh
no! Actually, no. They're definitely better than Astra Militarum. Okay, I feel like they're just a little bit worse than World Eaters for on parness.
Yeah.
On how we think they're going to overperform.
I think they go above World Eaters.
But okay, I'm happy with that. I got no horse in this race.
So. I think they're a solid army. I think people will do well with them.
Alrighty, up next, Grey Knights.
Grey Knights equal with Dark Angels.
Oh. So is Orks too.
So is Orks. What's going on?
Flip-flops are Orks doing?
Where are these Orc players come from? Ryan's called
War Boss has been calling.
Yeah.
Sign up. I'm doing my part. Grey Knights, man, they've gone a bit quiet, and you can kind of understand why, right? If people are leaning into more shooting orientated armies, and Deathwing Knights are not super durable. Sorry, not Deathwing Knights. Nemesis Dread Knights are not super durable.
Yeah.
If you're looking into a shooting meta, they're not easy to hide on your expansion objective either. I can kind of understand why the popularity has dropped off a little bit.
Yeah, low AP shooting is really not the one in
Short
this
range too.
meta. I think Grey Knights are going to underperform despite being so popular,
Hmm?
and I think that would be quite clear. I think it'd be quite stark, actually.
I feel they're
I
going to do worse than Tyranids, man.
I think so. I
Yep.
think so. I think this is an awful meta for them, and I don't think this terrain suits them,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yep. I 100% agree. Orcs.
Why are they so popular? What's going
I don't know,
on?
man.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean,
Orcs.
props to the orc players out there. The orcs, and the guardsmen have all come out this tournament, and
I
um,
can.
I mean, it's interesting perspective for us because we have Brian in Ignite, and
Hmm.
Brian is, he's bringing the orcs to this tournament, and he's got a
Yes, of
really
course.
cool. I think it's a war horde list. The
Yeah, of course.
index
Let's
of
go
that
through
thing.
Brian's list, of course.
Let's do it.
Now that we think about it. Yeah, obviously Brian's a long time orc player for sure.
Hmm.
And I think the evolution of the new terrain piece for UKTC probably plays a big factor in this one, right? The
Hmm.
ability to hide your battle wagon right up close, and then either probably just disembark your other guys and move the battle wagon and charge something else is quite good, right? Like that terrain piece we can hide and move any unit over it, enables a lot of previously difficult to move units, I think. And I
Hmm.
think orcs kind of suffer in that sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
All right.
right. I have a problem with orc lists, Dave. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay.
When I see them on the board, they look huge, like an unlimited
Hmm.
amount of models. But whenever I read the list, it looks like there's nothing in there.
Looks like he has 2 units, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly what I thought. Yeah. No, literally exact. I read the list. I read Brian's list, and I thought, mate, Brian has like 3 units that actually do something. But we're probably wrong. But
Yeah, we are going to be wrong.
right. So Gazgul, Beast Boss. Now I'm not going to claim 100%. I know what these units go with, but
It's a
let's
big
believe
guy, smaller
two big
guy.
mechs. Two big mechs go with 20 boys each.
So the
I know
big
that much.
mechs are the interesting ones because it lets him walk through enemy
Yes.
models.
Yep.
It's very
It's a
exciting.
price you have to pay, but at the price of not being move blocked by 10 Catachan jungle fighters, it's a pretty cheap deal, isn't it?
Yeah, and at the top tier of play, and
That's all
Brian's
you're going to
obviously going to be
receive.
playing at that level. He's going to try and be trying to win the tournament. I'm sure.
Yep,
This kind of tech pieces are critical to success.
100%. 3 war bosses, and then he's got 20 units of boys, 10 beast snagger boys. I'm pretty sure a war boss probably goes to the beast snaggers. Beast
Probably the
snaggers.
Beast Boss.
The
Judging by the
beast, of
name,
course.
mate.
You idiot, David.
Mate,
The
I've got
beast
this.
boss.
I got this. I know how orcs work.
Work together. Beast snaggers off the top of my head have
Yeah,
anti-vehicle.
they got extra stuff against vehicles and monsters.
Nice. I can get that monolith, mate. Although, monolith, is that going to be easy? Is that going to be hard?
I don't even know why PD still works.
Oh, I'm on YP. I totally forgot I was streaming that. Oh dear. Beast Nugget boys. Here we go. Wow, jeepers. You can
Reroll the
re-roll the
hit
hit
roll.
roll. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Oh, they got
cool.
power snappers. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. 5 attacks each, I guess. Right? No, does everyone have a power snapper?
No,
everyone-
no, to
just-
Dave.
Oh, no.
Mate,
Oh, that's
it's
tough.
only one of them.
Okay, but Gazgul can surely kill a
Yeah,
monolith.
Gazgul can.
Gazgul.
So
What does
Gazgul's the
Gaz
big
do?
boy. Gaz
Oh, he
is
gives lethal
Brian.
hits actually. Oh, actually, the lethal hit banner is quite good because then you
Mm-hmm.
can re-roll as well because you're winning the monolith on 6s. So actually, the lethal hits is not bad there, and you can get an extra point of AP if I'm not mistaken in Warhorde.
So I think this is very interesting because I think this is Brian's dream. This orc list is so balanced, except for not with shooting, but just generally with the components he has. I can look at this and be like, Brian's got everything he wants in here.
Mm.
And I think this is a beautiful list from Brian with some transport-based orc play here.
There we go.
I think he will do very, very well.
I
Now,
think he's going to catch a lot of people off guard, of course,
definitely,
for
yeah.
sure. I can't remember the last time I played against Orcs, but I certainly didn't.
I
Lose.
play against orcs every single tournament, mate. I've never dodged orcs. Like I have such a high percentage of playing orcs at tournaments. But I love orcs because the orc players are always so nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's got a fundamental good game plan, right? It's actually faster than armies like Blood Angels and Dark Angels,
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's got a good amount of OC and mission play on top of that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think Brian will do well now. Will Orcs do
will
well
Orcs do
at
well?
this tournament, considering they have 32 players? You said?
Fuck no, underperform.
Oh, man. Above GK.
Bro, they can't be performing better than Tyranids, right? Surely.
No, no, surely
I
not.
mean, like on the player base side of things, I think
Someone's
Tyranids Codex is inherently a bit more powerful than the Orc one.
Dave, someone is going to open this tier list without knowing any context about what we're doing. And
This
it's
is a
going to be
good
like
point.
they put T-Suns on bottom tier. T-Suns, Blood Angels, and Turners on bottom tier. Oh, God.
Just wait for the wait for the
Oh,
inherent Chinese whispers.
oh no, Reddit, please.
Oh dear,
Be kind.
Eldari's up next. Great.
Eldar.
I
Eldar
mean, it's
bang in
kind of
the
the same as
middle.
Orcs, mate.
You know
There's
what?
no way I'm going to put Eldari lower than Orcs.
Eldar are weird because they are so balanced and in the middle of everything here. I think they lose to half the armies in the game and they win against half the armies in the game.
Sure,
They
yeah.
played 50% in this tournament. Has GW got the balancing absolutely perfect with Eldar, or are they too weak? Are they too strong? I don't know. Hard to tell.
They've had a pretty good run.
They've had a pretty good run. I think they deserve a bit of time in the middle.
Yep.
I think Eldar are very hard to use well at the moment.
Yep.
I think this meta is brutal.
Yep. I
They
mean, like
can't.
mention just Necrons, right? Everywhere.
I mean, they're actually okay into the big Necron list.
Yeah, but you still got to play super tight, right? Like if it's just a well-rounded Necron Hypercrypt list, it's a pretty tough game, right?
Yeah. I think it's not good. I think Eldar are going to underperform.
Mhm.
Are they going to do better than Orcs at this tournament?
Relative to the numbers,
Mm,
they are a little bit less popular.
one
Well, one.
person.
Well, technically
Yes.
correct. um, I think they're going to do worse, personally.
Oh my God, poor
I think they're
Eldar.
harder to play on these boards.
My boys, no.
What do you think? Do you think? I mean, I
I
can
mean,
understand that the player base that we're playing them now should be more refined.
I think it's going to take one balanced slate for Eldar to come back into kind of the upper mid tier.
Okay.
But as it stands, I think I agree with you with where you've put them.
Okay.
I would put them above Orcs,
Okay.
personally.
All good with me. Adeptus Custodes kind of dropping off a little bit now, 3.7%.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really see any redeeming qualities for this army, particularly on UKTC.
No, I think they're very vulnerable to getting shot up,
Yeah.
on their way across to doing anything.
If not, completely move blocked as well.
They're just extremely expensive for the defensive profile on a terrain format where they can't properly stage in the middle.
Yep.
I think they'll do worse than Grey Knights, personally.
Okay, that's exactly where I was thinking about putting it as well.
But speaking about an army which I think may do better than its
Okay.
numbers, I think the Demons are going to kick ass at this tournament.
I think Demons are better than I was chatting about Demons in the team chat a couple of weeks back as well. I think they're better than what they seem. I'm still not convinced that they're great, but I think they're better than what they seem. 100%.
We've got Mr. Manny Chima bringing the Chaos Demons at this event.
Leshu is also playing Chaos Demons.
Oh, is he there as well?
Yeah,
Oh.
quite a bit of difference. Let's go for Leshu's build.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's Lucas, right? I'll just go Chaos Demons. A lot of buggers.
Probably have Leshu in the middle of his name.
Lead
won't you?
Church Warders. Oh, oops. Sorry, I didn't type in demons. There we go. So
There
Lucas,
he is.
Leshu actually has. So if you don't know him, Leshu from Team Poland, former WGC champ, has gone for a bit of a different build because he's got Be'lakor, which isn't always necessarily an auto take, and he's got the Lord of Change. So he's still rocking obviously the GUO, which is awesome now. But he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 fatties. Rainmaster on the throne, which amps the damage. 2 units of 10 blood leaders, interesting. A unit of 6 Nurglings. Wow. Good for a move block, I would say. 3-inch maybe.
What is this list, Dave? What's going on?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything. But what I would tell you is the shooting. It's a little bit more of the shooting component because of the Lord of Change with the Everstave, and Be'lakor is not awful in the shooting. And same with the GUO. So I quite like this list. This list doesn't rely on any of the higher toughness non-greater demon data sheets like Fiends or perhaps Blood Crushers. which I think is probably a smart idea.
Very interesting list. I think guess Manny's going like for all in on the blood crushers, isn't he? So okay.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
All right. So that's a few different archetypes there, isn't it? So
I think they're
what
going
do
to
you
do
think?
better. I think they're
I
going to do better than their
I think so.
numbers represent. I think if
I,
you're a demon player and you looked at your faction percentage and you thought, you know what, I think demons are better than that, I would probably agree.
I think so.
I think they're above Dark Angels, personally.
Oh, Dave, put them in
There we go.
overperform. Let's
Okay,
do it.
sure.
Because I want chaos on Reddit from this. They're going to look at this. And,
But you know what's up next, though? I think this army is going to overperform more than Chaos Demons.
oh,
This
I
next one.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I think Tower pretty good.
I think Tower pretty
I'm
good
going to
as
slap
well.
him. You could argue maybe more than Necrons.
I actually think.
Because if you think about it, the numbers, right? If we look at the numbers, 30 players versus 54, it's almost twice.
Mhm.
Just go with this argument here for a second.
Mhm.
Tau was almost half represented as Necrons, but if you look at the top 100 players, I think there will be as many Tau as Necrons, maybe.
Yes. Oh,
See what I'm saying?
yes. I think this is very interesting.
Because Tau, I think, is a good combination here at the moment. It's a good combination of strong shooting army that's durable, plus the player base is probably more dedicated in playing, and people have less experience playing against it. It's a perfect storm in some ways.
There's a big Tau community as well who all help each other get better at the game. I know a lot of it through Kyle.
I think the Tiger Shark is very good too.
Oh, is that
Lewis is playing the Tiger Shark. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see it. How about this, Dave? In terms of actually the metric we're looking at, you could argue Tau should be at the top of the list.
You could, yeah, for sure.
Put them there, man. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Someone's gonna watch this tier list and be like, "What the fuck are these guys on about? They've lost the plot." But if you think about it, what we're saying here is that based on the representation of players, compared to something like Necrons or Sisters, where it's almost half the player base, I think there's going to be a lot of Tau players in that top 100 for sure. Alrighty, Leagues of Votan. Oh my, does this faction still exist? Wow, 27 players. Man, what a boring faction. I'm sorry.
It's so much potential to be cool, but they're just not, are they?
It's got to be the most on par army there is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think on par it describes them to a T. I think bottom of on par, probably.
Bottom of on par?
Yeah.
Do you think Chaos Space Marines are going to perform better given that they have more players?
Oh, it's close between them, isn't it?
It's close, man.
Okay, go on. Yeah, pop it down where you are, I think.
Oh, all right. That's a tough one, though. That's actually a tough one. Drukhari. I think Drukhari are above Demons, personally.
I think Drukhari are going to overperform at this. They're such a low play rate for how good an army they are.
Just 26 players. And this army's legitimately good. It's got so many tools.
And on UKTC terrain, it's very interesting because they can actually wriggle up and over these staging ruins very easily and get out of their transports and charge. So I think Drukhari are really... Is this Yokkel's? Yeah.
This is Yokkel's list, yeah.
Yeah, this is a beautiful list. If you want to copy a Drukhari list, this is beautiful.
I played against this and I was like, man, this army's got a lot of good stuff. He's got 3 Archons and Lilith. So Lilith squad's pretty good against the Bulgrin as well. So you got a nice unit there, actually. In the meta. It's got a good amount of speed to it. 3 Raiders. So, he's not actually just instantly dying to, a little bit of shooting. They have a little bit more survivability. Lilith and obviously 10 Witches. You've got a bunch of fight first. Do all of the Archons have fight first?
No, it's just Lilith.
Oh, just Lilith, sorry.
Yeah.
But a nice fight first component regardless is great in the melee meta. 1 Chronos. And then he's got 30 Incubi.
Yeah, full Incubi is very interesting, actually.
Yeah. 2 units of Mandrakes, and we were chatting about this just last night. Little unit of Reavers.
That's just to get the points, isn't it?
To get the points, but Reavers are really good at playing the mission control because they're OC2 each, and they're very fast. So for 60 points, 6 OC, it's actually pretty efficient when you think about it.
Okay, yes.
1, 2, 3 unit of Scourgers, and he's gone with all Haywire. All Haywire all day.
Oh, no, he's got the Lancers in the middle. On the middle unit.
Oh, okay, interesting. He's gone a whole unit of Dark Lancers. Okay,
yeah, so he wants 1 unit probably for a bit of poke, early game poke.
Okay, I can appreciate that because at least your opponent has to respect the capability, right? Even if it doesn't deliver or not, most people still respect it, right?
Yep.
And then this unit I think is super undervalued.
The MVP.
The Void Raven Bomber, just the one-off. Mate, this thing absolutely cranks. oh my god, this thing does so much damage. If you're a Marine player, this is probably the last thing you want to see your opponent's list. A Void Raven bomber if you're playing Dark Angel, playing Blood Angels. You're just like, oh my god, he's got
Or
Void Raven bomber.
T-Suns.
Oh, even T-Suns or
Oh.
even World Eaters.
Hmm.
Even against Guard, it's good. This thing's -1 to hit. It's old aircraft style. And for 1 CP, you can get a 4-up invuln.
No,
So
really?
good, man.
Can you? I thought that was only transports. I'm definitely got that wrong. I need to read the Drukhari rules again.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can get a 4-up invuln on it.
Nice. Well, I think this is a very good list. I think it's decent for the terrain format as well. And considering the low play rate, which surprises me, I think the players who are going to be playing it are actually quite good players at this tournament.
Yep, for sure.
I think people will do well with Drukhari here.
Yeah, I can see it above Nick. I could.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of overperformance, I'd put them above Sisters as well.
Okay, above Sisters. Yeah, nice.
Nice.
I'm gonna do a read because something's kind of ticked in my head now that we've done the list now. Death Guard. I actually think Death Guard are a little bit better than the numbers give them credit for here.
On UKTC though?
Yeah, actually on
Interesting.
UKTC, I actually think they're better.
Oh, okay.
Primarily because I think that archetype of still 3 PBC, 2 Preds, a 10-man unit, vehicle heavy skew, lots of bloat drones, actually has a good mix of the OC and all flamers. Given the meta we're in, actually still hits a lot of things really well. I played against Liam playing that type of list with Tyranids, with Mortarion as well. Dude, Liam absolutely rolled me with that. I had nowhere near enough damage. He was just like, yeah, I just got to get into combat, push my PBCs into you, flame you, hold your objective. And I'm like, wow, okay. Get wrecked, David. So I kind of feel like they're, I mean, given the numbers, I want to put.
Yeah, that
I feel
sounds
like
about right, doesn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised, if you're a competent, if you're a really good Death Guard player, then I think you could do quite well, actually. I think
I'm looking at this now, and I'd actually put the Drukhari above the Tau Empire here on this one.
It's pretty
Close.
similar, man.
Yeah, they're
Drukhari
kind
and
of
Tau.
similar.
Drukhari, it's 30 and versus 26.
They're pretty
Oh.
similar, aren't they? Oh,
Okay,
no, okay.
hear me out here. Hear me out here. I think the average Tau player. Oh god, can't believe I'm saying this. I think the average Tau player is a little bit more competitively nuanced than the Drukhari player.
I disagree with you. I think the
Okay.
average Tau player is less cool than the average Drukhari player.
I agree with you. They're less cool. Don't get me wrong. I agree on that one. But I think they're okay. Here's the reality. I think their builds are more direct to play. You know, you're moving and shooting and cutting angles, which plays directly to your army's design philosophy, right? Whereas Drukhari,
you're
I think,
right.
is going to be a little bit more harder to execute on there, actually.
Yep.
So,
fair.
given it's relatively the same, I feel like Tau would probably be performing a little bit better.
Yep. Fair
Maybe?
play. Yeah, I'll
It's
give it to
super
you.
close, so I can see it either way. Black Templars. I mean, Lewis from Mind Goblins, I think, is playing 100 Crusader bodies. You know, I was wondering how many people were going to try to attempt that.
Yeah, very few people, interestingly. Not very popular,
Yeah.
considering it's such a strong army and archetype. But there's a lot of dead space in the middle.
But there's a lot of output in today's meta as well, man.
And the
And playing
army,
that.
it doesn't have much advance and charge except for that one unit.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite slow. I
can
think
see it
it
like
will maybe be
here.
on par. Yeah.
Here?
Yeah, I think so.
World Eaters pip it a little bit. Space Wolves, I think, are a little bit. I think Space Wolves, I kind of think, are in here around this region as well.
Yeah.
And, well, what is the play rate of this actually? That's pretty low, 2.7%. Yeah.
On par, bang in the middle of on par. Yeah.
Imperial Knights. I actually think Imperial Knights are going to overperform a little bit.
Oh, Dave.
Based on the numbers here.
What is this tier list?
20 players playing this. I think there's going to be more than 2.7% of them definitely in the top 100. Actually, I've got it. I've got the metric. Here's the metric. Based on the percentage, and this is kind of just like overrep, what do we think the top 100 percentage is going to look like?
There you go.
And I think actually Imperial Knights is going to be a bit higher than 2.7%. I could see 5 players getting into the top 100 maybe.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to put them a little bit here. I've seen some of those Meta Mondays, and I've seen those Imperial Knights lists cropping up a little bit.
Watch out.
You know? Shooty. But there are a lot of Necrons and Sisters and Tau. Well, not a lot of Tau. So I'm going to put them back down here. and I'm going to put them right.
It's a lot of anti-tank,
There's
isn't
a lot
there?
of anti-tank, yeah.
Yeah.
Admech. I mean, how many have we got? How many are we
Oh,
talking?
we're
17 players.
really scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
This is a tough. I mean, there's so much tough calls here at this point, isn't it? I mean,
I think for the player base on AdMech, I think just as an army with MSU stuff, I think they'll be on par. I don't think they'll do badly.
yeah, whereabouts on par are they going to be? Like, the player base is so low. I could see it being like here, you know?
I think so. I think they'll
Okay,
always do
we'll try.
decently.
These ones are going to be super tough.
Yeah.
Gene Stealer Cult, I mean, you could see it because the numbers are so low. 15 players only. You know, we're talking 3 Gene Stealer Cult players in the top 100. You know,
I think they'll still underperform.
I can kind of see that too. I think Ennis will do well, but I think the rest of them are. I'm going to put at the top of underperform.
Yeah.
And Chaos Knights have 10 players.
Ooh, it's
Surely
very low. They're a decent
1%.
army.
Surely 2 Chaos Knight players can get in there, right?
They're decent, actually. I think I'd put them on the top of on par, actually.
Okay. I can feel that. Okay. Here we go. All right. So this is what, just to clarify, if you're going to clip any part of this episode, clip this part. This is
No, Dave, actually, I don't think your metric works. I think it
Okay.
has to be more subjective than that. Because if we look at the percentage played, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get that back up for a second,
Yes, sure.
you are telling me in the top 100, there's going to be like, let's say 5 Sisters players. So they would probably massively overperform that.
That's a great point.
I think, yeah, we're going to see
Okay.
the top.
That would mean that actually that's over here. Because I kind of like this metric though.
Hmm.
And I think Necrons would be. Is there going to be 12 in the top 100? Probably, yeah. There's probably going to be more Necrons than Sisters.
Mhm.
But okay.
This is interesting. I think a more subjective vibe based, which armies are you going to do better with as an average player? Chance to get in a better score than you did before, overperform your normal performance, maybe at this tournament and this terrain format might work.
So you want to go back here? Well, okay, let's do that. So the way that I kind of look at this list right now actually is like, if you're looking for a new army that not a lot of people play, and you want to get better at the game and perform better than your army is kind of performing on average, then these are kind of some of the armies to look at. And when I think about these armies, that's exactly what comes to mind. Tau, Drukhari are definitely 2 armies that when I think about great players on them, is so much different from the average player. They're so much more scarier. And actually, Tau and Drukhari are great examples of armies that have a huge capability and skill ceiling, and actually ability and reach to win a tournament. Obviously, these other armies do as well, but they're very represented. Is kind of the way that I look at it as well. Chaos Demons, I can see up there, but you know, that's the way that we think it. This is going to be for the LGT. Obviously, this is for our terrain format. But you know, all in all, I mean, the meta's pretty flat, right? It kind of.
I mean, if I was making a tier list on what I would like to take to win a tournament, right, in singles, it would look quite different to this. Tau and Drukhari wouldn't be at the top of it.
What would be your top 3 of what you would take?
I think the top 3 would be Guard as number 1 in the game, and then Sisters as the next one. And then the third one, I'm a little unsure on, whether one of the Marine factions jumps into that space, potentially. I'm not convinced by the Dark Angels. It might be the Necrons, actually, on that one. What about you, Dave?
I think I would go very similar. I would go with Sisters and Guard. And then to make a super deep run, you know what? Weird as it sounds, I could actually see Drukhari doing that.
Oh, yeah. Possibly. I think the meta is a little hostile for them, especially if a lot of Sisters players bring Exorcists.
Yeah.
I think the Sisters game is the awkward one for them.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't played that either. And if that's a tough game, then that's going to be tough. Actually, no, my third pick would be, if you could play it properly, the Black Templars body list.
Yes, you get a good correct. Run. There you go.
Yeah. If you get a good run, which goes to show you how much reach you could have in that. But Necron is really strong as well. But at the end of the day, LGT is going to be a cool decision kind of comparison from WTC, right? Because actually, you're right, and there are a lot of players that played WTC haven't played any tournaments until LGT. And actually, the last tournament I played, but apart from LGT, WTC was Manchester. So it's been a long time since I've played a UKTC tournament. So yeah, a lot of people, and probably I think there's probably other people similar to me that took time out for WTC not to play as well. So there's going to be some of the usual competitors coming back into the scene to play these tournaments as well, which is interesting because it really shows that what the meta is going to look like after that as well. But even then, if you look at the very top players that we're very used to seeing, it's pretty diverse in the factions. I think everyone on Ignite has a different faction, whereas comparing to last year, I think three of you
of
guys
us
play the
had
same list.
Eldar list. Yep.
Yep. So yeah, and I probably would have played it if I had my head screwed on straight as well. So there we go, guys. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know if you think that a faction is going to be better than what you actually think is represented in the statistics, or if you've got one little one that you want to highlight. Let us know down in the comments, maybe, and get your voice heard and etched in stone before the event, so you can come full bragging rights. The person who gets it right, I'll give full bragging rights to in the next episode. We do a recap. There we go. Any closing thoughts, Vic?
No, that's it. I've got to make sure the description exactly explains what we're doing.
Yes.
Here, because people are going to skip to the end and be like, what are these guys on about?
I'll just put the stat check logo on this too.
Beautiful. Put stat check one corner and art of war in another corner, okay?
There we go. There we go. Tier list door. After LGT, I mean, maybe even before we could do a little tier list of where we think each factions are or something like that as well.
After the balance slate, something like that, maybe?
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
all right, guys. It's been a pleasure. It's nice to be back, and Warhammer's in a good spot. So,
see you at LGT.
Bye.